Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for TWiT specials is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is breaking news coverage of the Facebook announcement today, live, brought to you by Slingbox. Slingbox.com/.
We have this messaging system on Facebook. Today, around 350 million people are actively using messages on Facebook. So it's a good amount. It's interesting because it's not everyone who uses Facebook, but a lot of people are actively using the system on Facebook, and a big part of that is because I think it's a really simple system. There are more than 4 billion messages sent every day through the Facebook system. So that includes, messages.
So this is the stats part of the deal. We're going to get the numbers now. They're not necessarily irrelevant.
Goes on the service.
These parts of keynotes are a little slower than others, though, in my opinion.
How people are social and sharing
things
a while
to ramp
more
up.
openly.
Yeah, well, they want to interpret every number for you.
Right.
Everyone
Set
in
the
their community.
stage.
But this is the vast majority of this is one-to-one messages between two people. And this doesn't include messages from pages or anything like this. This is all messages between people. The vast majority of this are kind of one-to-one communications that are happening between people. Very simple communication.
Replies.
And we try to graph out so that you can see the growth trajectory. But this 4 billion messages is growing incredibly quickly. It's growing at a much faster rate than just Facebook's users.
Much faster than AOL.
Over
they
the
revamped
summer,
their email
we
today.
spent a lot of
Looks
time
more like
trying to
Gmail.
make systems like chat and messaging a lot more stable and faster. And as that's happening, what we're just seeing is so many more people are using this for private communication. So today we want to talk about what the next version of this is.
That's not such a surprise. Facebook is meant to allow you to connect and communicate with your friends.
Right. We don't think that a modern messaging system is going to be email. Right? We think that a modern messaging system has a bunch of characteristics to it, and some of them I've listed up here. So one is kind of
this is a very classic Jobsian
that you interact with technology. Right?
Everybody's fashioning themselves after Jobs.
He went through a very quick numbers, and now he's setting up the problem. This is exactly what they did with iTunes when they announced the iTunes Music Store. Here's the problem. I don't know if the problem is as big with messaging, but we'll see what he says here.
Formal communication adds a cognitive load that makes it so that less communication happens and people don't want to share quite as much. It needs to be immediate. Right? When you get a message, it should show up immediately. And I'm not talking about you send an email and it gets delivered at the speed of light. What I'm talking about is you're sending an email and a new message comes in the thread and it displays immediately. Right? I mean, that's kind of the type of real-time communication that most people expect from IM systems or some SMS systems. It should be personal. Right? I mean, one of the big things that I think people really like about IM or SMS over email is it's such a high signal-to-noise ratio. Right? I mean, when you
because there's no spam.
When you get an SMS, it's very likely that it's from someone that you care about, or an IM, it's from someone who you care about.
So we were just talking about the other day, how email used to be like that back in the 90s.
It should be simple. Right? I mean, you shouldn't have to wade through a very complex product with a lot of features. A lot of people today expected, okay, Facebook is going to add more features to messaging. We think that we should take features away from messaging. It should be minimal, pretty similar to simple, and it should be short. Right? I mean, we think that a lot of what makes it so that people can share a lot of content is if they can share it in shorter bursts and not kind of have to download one huge thing. So these are some of the characteristics of what we're going to talk about today. And now I just want to introduce the three kind of main aspects of what we're doing, and then I'm going to turn it over to Boz over here to walk through exactly what we're doing. So these are the three main features of the new messaging product, a modern messaging product that we're rolling out today.
Messaging, conversation history,
the first is
social inbox.
Seamless messaging. It's a convergent system that we're launching today that kind of handles messages seamlessly across all the different ways that you want to communicate. It's not email, right? It handles email in addition to Facebook messages and Facebook IM and other IM and SMS and all the different ways that you want to communicate, it's true, people are going to be able to have Facebook.com email addresses, but this is not email. Email is one way that people will be able to use this system, but we don't even think it's going to be the primary way that people use this system. It's just one way that people want to communicate, and the goal of this product is to make it so that we can seamlessly integrate across all of these different products very easily. The second is conversation history. One of the biggest things that we think is kind of confusing and difficult about email is there's this threading model, which we think is very archaic. You know, one of the things that adds just a lot of weight to email is you have subjects and you have all these different threads with a person. But in real life, you know, if you talk to someone, you have a conversation with them, right? You have like a stream of conversation. And our view is, you know, a lot of the more modern communication vehicles that people are using, like IM or SMS, you don't have multiple threads. You have one thread with a person. That makes it really simple to communicate with them, and it has a lot of interesting properties. Like, you can go back and have your whole conversation history in one view. So that's what we wanted to do here. We wanted to make it so that it's super simple. You have a conversation with a person or with a group of people. You have one conversation with that group or that person, and all your IMs, messages, emails, SMSs go into that, and you have one history, and you can kind of go through it forever, right? And that's going to be really cool, because 5 years from now, you're going to just have this full, rich history of all of the communication that you have with each of your friends and the people around you.
Looks like everyone in the room there is also really chatting instead of listening to Mark Zuckerberg.
Simple real-time messaging, right? You have one thread with someone sends you a message, it comes in immediately, it's really good. The third thing is this concept that we're calling social inbox, which is just that because we know who your friends are, right? Because you've put in your friends list, and your friends have put in their friends list, we can do some really good filtering for you to make sure that you only see messages that you really care about.
Possibly now, even better than Google's attempt to do that with priority inbox, I would imagine,
filters that
with
are
how
very
people use Facebook.
That have been developed over the last 10 or 15 years that are really good at getting rid of the real junk, right? But there are a lot of different classes of junk, and it's really difficult for any email system to know, this is a person who's sending a legitimate message, but you just don't care about what they have to say. I think for a long time, people have acknowledged that the real way to deal with spam and filtering is to build whitelists, right?
Why do you need a whitelist?
You can say exactly who you want to receive messages from, and just get messages from those people. But it hasn't really been practical to do that. Right? And we talked about this at the groups launch about a month ago, but nobody wants to make lists. Right? Very few people go and will actually make a list to filter the people that they want to get messages from. But at Facebook, you get that automatically. But it's even better than that, because not only do you get that, but you can just get messages filtered to you from people who are friends of your friends or who are closer within your network without ever having to do any work at all. So one of the results of this is that you get this social inbox where your default experience is all really high signal personal messages for you, but then you get this other box that you can go to and you can check once a day or whenever you want that has all the other stuff that isn't junk that we automatically filter out. And it just creates a really compelling experience.
Let's see how this lays out.
So
as Dr. Mom points out, this can be done by accessing Facebook
that we think create a modern messaging system. Seamless integration across all the different ways that people communicate, including email, but not only email. A single conversation history, so you can have all your context with friends and people that you know all in one place, very simple to interact with and communicate through. And the third is a social inbox for filtering exactly the messages that you want to see. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Boz is going to walk through exactly what the product is, and then we will take questions at the end. So thank you guys for coming out.
I'm Andrew Bosworth, in case you didn't notice. People call me Boz. You're welcome to do the same. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about, I'm going to give you a demo, a look at the product. We're going to talk about some of the philosophy the team had when we were building the product. And kind of talk you through some of the scenarios.
Employees, by the way, so if you go look at it,
to start with the seamless messaging piece,
Microsoft Exchange.
When we first started
it's for employees. That's not for us.
Looking at what we were going to build, one of the first things we thought to do was to bring together Facebook chat and Facebook messages. And we kind of unraveled that thread, and we realized that it's actually bigger than just Facebook, right? It's all communication devices. They don't work that well together. text and SMS, email, Facebook. It's not like we should all be more connected today than at any point previous, right? We have phones, we have the internet, and yet because we have so many different ways to communicate, our communication with who we care about are fragmented. So when I want to, this is true, when I want to reach out to my cousin Danny, I have to send him a text message. I don't care if I'm in the same room with him, he's in high school, and it's the only known way to get a hold of him, I swear to God. If I want to talk to my grandmother, she is on Facebook because she loves me, but she prefers to use email, and if I want to get a response, I'm better off sending an email. So I'm keeping this lookup table in my head of who I need to reach out to and on what medium, and if I want to get a hold of them. And it seems like it should be simpler than that. It seems like technology should get out of the way. It should be as easy as just sending a person a message.
Because you can't, it's not so much remembering how to get a hold of them, it's remembering how to reply, where to find that message.
The idea that we would take all the conversations, all the messages that are being sent back and forth on all these different devices and mediums, and thread them together into one conversation between two people, just a conversation between friends.
It's like a unified mailbox, but with methods of communication.
So we're giving people
as opposed to
an
different services.
Facebook.com email address, which will match their public username. This is an option. People who don't want to use this don't have to get it. Everything else we're talking about works
Facebook
perfectly
email
fine
address, just
without
like we said.
But for those who want to communicate via email, we want to make sure they can still connect with the rest of us on Facebook. As much as we are providing this email address so people can work with us, the system is definitely not email.
Okay.
We've actually modeled it more after chat. So this is a little demo.
It's got an email address, but it's
not
email.
In the center, browsing around Facebook. My buddy Ben, who's a friend of mine, is on the left, and he prefers email. And Ben's hungry. He wants to grab lunch. So he sends me an email to my Facebook.com email address, and I'm browsing around, so it pops up on chat. I say, hey, you know what? That sounds good. I'm pretty hungry, and I like Ben. I could have ignored this message and minimized it and dealt with it later, but no, I'm deal with it in real time. All these systems work together in real time.
I hope that's customized.
So I say, hey, that sounds pretty good, but I can't for the life of me remember the Italian place we were talking about the other day. So I call up our message history, and I realize we were talking about Pacino's in the dog patch. So I say, yeah, that sounds exactly what I want to do.
It's a great place to get a blue bottle
I send him a message, press the enter key, and it sends by default, right? Really modeled after chat. And after that, I leave my computer, and he'll get that response over email. And a few minutes later, he realizes, after seeing the thread, just like he'd expect as an email user, that he forgot to ask me to pick up our friend Anne. It's no problem, though, because I've got my iPhone with me, and I get a push notification that says I've gotten a message from Ben.
So not a text message, it's a push notification.
To the application, to the thread with him, and tell him, hey, no problem. Because we're launching the iPhone application along with the rest of this product today. Now, if I didn't have the iPhone application, or if I didn't have an iPhone at all, this could work just as well over text message, right? So the idea here is...
So it could be a text message.
Not email. The idea here isn't Facebook. The idea here isn't anything of those things. It's people should share however they want to share.
All of your messaging must go through Facebook servers so we can data mine it.
That'll work.
Yeah, no kidding.
If you want to chat with me and I'm on Facebook and want to get it in Facebook messages, that works too. In fact, it's going to work with a whole range of technologies that aren't about Facebook.com. For people who, our existing integration with Jabber and XMPP, like Windows
Jabber's Google
Messenger,
Chat, right?
AOL Instant Messenger,
same protocol.
This system will work with them just fine. IMAP won't be ready for the launch, but we're planning to build it, so users who want to interact with their messages on whatever email client they want,
Thunderbird,
we'll be able to support that. Output. And of course, it'll all continue to work with the existing APIs on the Facebook API. The next thing I want to talk about is conversation history. So
I want to hear a little more about how that integrates with your text message.
Have the entire history of your conversations with your boyfriend or girlfriend going back to the beginning. Everything from, you know, hey, it was nice to meet you, you want to get coffee, fast forward to, you know, it's your turn to pick up the kids at soccer practice, right? This is a powerful idea. And when we were playing with this, I kind of realized that my grandmother has this. She has a box of letters in her closet, right? Top shelf, right-hand side, of letters written by my grandfather when they were dating, right? And that's precious. She's 90 years old. She's kept that with her a long time.
Privacy violation telling us where that is.
That kind of thing is increasingly rare, right? Like, where is my box of letters? It's locked up on a couple different phones. It's locked up in email services. It's not in one place until now. So for fun, we went back and actually looked at, this is my actual conversation history with my girlfriend of 4.5 years, going back to the beginning. We've tried to keep it quickly so you're not reading too much of the text, but I can walk you through it. Highlights are like, nice to meet you, we've got an apartment, we're getting cats, and then we spend the next 2 years talking about furniture for our apartment and our cats. So this is really, really powerful, and it actually, we literally were going through this Saturday morning as like, I wonder if, and it was incredibly useful, and there's a, funny cat picture, it's great. And it's powerful and it's meaningful and it means something to me. And I'm sad because it's not everything, right? It doesn't include emails, it doesn't include text messages that her and I have exchanged over the years, right? So I'm very jealous of the next generation who will have access in one place to all of these things. And I'm not just being romantic. This isn't just nostalgia. Like if the last 3 messages I sent to my girlfriend were of the format, I miss you, I love you, what will my next message be? Even if I'm in a bad mood. Like even if I had a bad day, right? Context isn't wasted. Context is meaningful. Individually, these messages may not be particularly profound, but collectively they form a conversation between me and someone that I care a lot about. In order to support
this is an
really
interesting
cool,
anecdote,
very deep scenario,
but
as well as all the different routing and weaving together narratives and all the different devices, we had to completely rebuild the infrastructure that this product is built on. So a little over a year ago, we started looking at storage systems. We had invested heavily in a distributed key value store that we built internally called
As if to
Cassandra,
answer my
which is
request for
open sourced,
details.
and it's gotten very popular, but we weren't sure what the trade-offs around eventual consistency. We tested with MySQL. We weren't sure how it would perform with a long tail of data. So we actually decided to invest in a new system, an open source product called HBase, which is built on top of HDFS, the Hadoop file system. And that's one of the things that we're actually pretty comfortable with, given that we have the second largest deployment of Hadoop in the world. So we decided to invest in that. We worked closely with the open source community, and we built a whole engineering team internally around that. We also extended our Haystack infrastructure. Now, one of the things that we felt a modern messaging system has to support is attachments. Every Christmas, I have a big family, so we have
this is a big challenge for Facebook because they have to build the ability to handle outside email into this system, fighting spam, handling attachments, as he's saying.
Do it elegantly enough that people are going to want to switch and continue to use it.
And have it not be swamped with a bunch of unwanted messages.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course,
a lot of noise,
existing
potentially.
Technologies we've talked a lot about, like Thrift and Memcache and an implementation of Zookeeper. But we've actually built an entirely new piece of technology in the middle that handles all the routing of messages from different places, all of the caching and searching, and of course, like I said, storage of this type of data. We built it from the ground up because this kind of communication between users is really, really important, right? This is like the most valuable to them. Actually, and it's worth noting that this is actually the biggest engineering team Facebook has ever put together for a new product. It's 15 engineers. I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity. I was supposed to do this at the end, but
in some sense, the privacy implications of this aren't any different than any other ISP.
Can we give them a round of applause, please? They deserve it. That's fantastic.
Any ISP is subject to having all of your emails, having all of your information. It's just Facebook's track record, I think, that gives people more concern.
So the last thing I want to talk about is the social inbox. And it's always seemed like a problem for me when I look at my email and I see a message from my mother and it's sandwiched between a bank statement and a bill, right? She deserves better from me than that. And one of the great things about Facebook is we have an opportunity to do better here. We have an opportunity to organize your conversations by the people you care about because you've taken the time to tell us who you care about most.
So this is your priority
so
inbox.
Default,
yeah, right.
When you look at your messages, you're going to see messages from your friends and their friends only. Now, of course, if your grandmother, who's not on Facebook, sends you a message and it winds up in the other folder, you can move her into the messages folder. And from then on, your conversations with her will be front and center.
Well, it's interesting. It's a really handy way to
have
whitelist.
Kind of a chatty friend who you like, but don't necessarily want to give the same attention as grandmother. You can move her or him into the other folder.
It takes a little bit of management. Your friends list is a nice, handy whitelist.
The other folder is not the junk
Absolutely.
folder. Junk will just be somewhere else.
But there will always be people in your friends list that aren't necessarily your close friends.
Right, and so you have to manage that.
Right. Fantastic. This is, these are my friends and their friends. That's all this is. These are the things I care the most about. Every row is a conversation with somebody I care about.
Mark Zuckerberg.
The other folder, this isn't spam.
He doesn't care about
These are pages I've liked. It's bank statements, it's bills, it's alumni newsletters, it's fare alerts. These aren't things that are unsolicited. They're just things that I don't care as much about. when we did a lot of user research leading up to building this product, this was a common complaint, was that I want to get these things. I just don't want them next to everything else that I care about. We kind of expect that users will look at this folder maybe once a day and just see if there's anything that interests them at the moment. Whereas we expect our users to really always be engaging with the messages folder and constantly interacting with their friends.
I think because of Facebook's privacy scares, your friends list on Facebook may be more finely honed than a regular contact list in Gmail or Hotmail or something.
Absolutely. The amount of control we can give people. One of the big problems with email is that once I give an email address out, or a phone number for that matter, it's lost, like it's compromised. And if it gets to someone I don't want to have it, I don't have any choice except maybe to change my email address or just accept that I'm going to get contact that I don't care to get. But with Facebook, we can actually do much better than this. We can actually change the paradigm from security by obscurity to genuine control over who gets your attention. So if you were to go to change your privacy settings around who can send you messages to be friends only, for example, then we would actually bounce any email arriving from somebody who wasn't a friend of yours. This is the kind of control people have wanted for a long time around email, but have never been able to provide because they didn't have the one thing that matters.
Never.
Yeah, and that's the social graph.
Just maybe
so with the new
not
Facebook
as
messages,
easy as
we're really excited to provide people with a place that they can have conversations with the people they care most about, and no matter where they are, no matter what device they want to use, and no matter what medium they want to use, they can pick up right where they left off. Thanks.
I'm still interested in how text messaging is going to be integrated into this, how they're going to integrate the other sides of things, how it's going to lay out and how we activate it.
That's what we have for you today. We're really proud of this. A lot of folks who Boz asked to stand up before have been working on this for, I think it's well more than a year now. Yeah, it's a huge problem, right? Not only just scaling the existing system that we have now as IM growth and messages growth have increased and accelerated even faster than user growth, but on top of that, layering in all these new systems, including email and SMS that have their own quirks. So, what we expect today, there was a lot of press leading up to this that was like, this is an email killer. And this is not an email killer. This is a messaging system that includes email as one part of it.
That's not as snappy of a headline.
We don't expect anyone to wake up tomorrow and say, okay, I'm going to shut down my Yahoo Mail account or my Gmail account and switch exclusively to Facebook. That's not what we think is happening in the world. What we think is happening is that just like those high school students who I started off today talking about have subtly shifted towards more and more real-time, simpler communication, that's what we think is going to happen here too. So every day, if we do a good job here, what we expect is that more people will IM and more people will message and more people will engage in this just because it's simpler and it's easier and it helps people connect better and it's more accessible and it's more fun and more valuable for them to use.
More valuable for you.
Then if we do a good job with that, then we expect that maybe, one day, 6 months, a year and a half, 2 years out, some people will start to say, hey, this is the way that the future should work. These simpler messages are a better way for me to do messaging. Maybe email just isn't as important of a part as it was before. It'll always be a part, and maybe maybe we can help push the way that people do messaging more towards this kind of seamless, simple, real-time, immediate, personal experience that we're talking about today. So that's our goal. That's what we're trying to do. We're going to be rolling this out pretty slowly over a period of the next few months, really. We're starting off with an invite system so that all of you guys, I think, are in the initial set, and then we can all invite people who we want to play around with it and kind of watch as it scales up and get user feedback as we're doing that.
I will be the last person to be invited.
That's what we have today. So thank you guys, and now Boz and I will answer questions, or try to.
You're listening to live coverage of the Facebook announcement. They've announced Mail. This is brought to you by Slingbox. Easy way to get television over the web. Your television, hook it up at home to your television and your internet. Watch TV anywhere you go. They help us bring you live news whenever it happens. Check it out at live.twit.tv. Let's listen into the questions.
What does this mean?
Mic's not on. Yeah, just shout.
Yeah, so the question was, what does the system not do that we want it to do?
Good question, if he'll answer it.
Yeah, I mean, so there were some things that Boz mentioned in the presentation, like, for example, we want to have IMAP support, right? That's definitely part of the philosophy of what we're doing, is that it should be interoperable with all these systems. It already speaks email protocol, so that way you can send and receive emails, but having it sync with other email systems is something that is obviously on the roadmap of things that we want to do. There's a lot of little features, obviously, that we want to do, and then a lot of this we'll just be looking at feedback and seeing what we learned. You know, there are a lot of things that the system doesn't do, but a lot of those are by design, right? So, for example, one thing that heavy email users might be used to that we aren't doing is having subject lines with multiple threads with the same person. Right, and that's not because we didn't get around to it yet. It's because we explicitly looked at this and said, you know, that's valuable for some people, but we don't think that that's the direction that the world is going to go in. So we're just going to make it so that you have a single conversation history with each person. And we made a lot of kind of design decisions along the way like that in designing the product.
So here's a feature that we decided not to put in on purpose, but I'm not going to answer your question.
Let's go right there.
Sorry. A lot of people who have contacts, they know multiple addresses for them, so they know their email address, they know their IM address, they know their SMS. How do you decide which that gets sent to when I want to send a message to someone?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering about.
Sure.
How do you manage
So, I mean,
this?
This is one of the complicated things that we had to work out and iterate on a lot over the last year, right? But I mean, you can probably speak to a bunch of this if I miss anything. But like, I mean, for example, if you have been interacting with someone through email, then we'll send their replies back to your email. A person can say, same thing with SMS. A person can trigger from the interface, say, I want this message to definitely go to someone's phone, and then we can send them an SMS based on that. Maybe in the future that'll be if we know that they don't have an iPhone app or an Android app, that we can deliver that way. We try to deliver stuff as quickly as possible if someone is online. So if you get a message and you're online, then you get it as an IM, right? And the idea is we want to make this really simple and lightweight. There's a lot of nuance in this piece of technology, which we've called the policy engine for routing these messages. So I mean, if I missed anything big, you should jump in.
The only thing I'd mention is like our goal is to have it feel like a conversation. So like when I like get up from my computer, like that chat, it doesn't close. I don't have to like BRB or like GTG. I can just like get up and go, and it feels like a conversation. So Zuck's exactly right. There's a lot of dials to turn here, and basically the best way to do that is we've been using it, and we're going to listen to feedback from users. It's one of the things that in this slow rollout that we're planning, we're going to be very attentive to and making sure we're getting that right. But we've got all these different channels available to us to make sure that we do.
To your left.
They haven't figured it out yet.
One more thing to add to that is, though, we've tried to make it so that people don't have to think about this stuff, right? So we think that just by
you have to think about it enough to do the filtering in advance.
Determine where to send the messages to, and equally as important, where not to, so that way you don't have the same message in 5 different channels. And that's a lot of the value that I think is being created with this product, and you'll just have to play around with it to let us know if we got it right.
There is a, Lennon 2010 asked if there's a launch date. They're going to launch it slowly over the next several months, invite only to begin with.
Hey, asking about voice, video, anything like that?
You know, maybe over time, but we just thought it was a lot easier to unify the 4 channels that we're talking about today, right? SMS, IM, email, and Facebook messages, because they all have something basic in common, which is that they're primarily text, right? So in the future, maybe something like voice. We'll have to think about it and see how, like what users ask for and how they're using the product.
I think it's a good thing they didn't try to put it in voice.
We think that this is a pretty big step by itself, and one that we just wanted to take before we started working on the next set of things.
It's a little bit less than Google Wave, a little less ambitious.
In the messaging screens, and will you be using any of the content of messages for targeting ads? And then finally, in the big picture, what impact do you think this is going to have in your broader rivalry with Google, both for advertising and for user time?
Yeah.
It's a quotable moment coming.
I missed this step. What's the context of Google? Yeah, I mean, Sure. I mean, the advertising works the same way it does for the rest of Facebook. There's a space on the right where there are some ads, and we try to make them as relevant as possible. We're not targeting anything based on the context of the content. But I mean, in general, our ad system is based on stuff that the user puts in, right? So that's a huge difference between our ad system and most other ad systems out there. I mean, you get things like all these ad networks, and they're targeting stuff to you based on just tracking you around the web, and our ad system is generally just based on you put in that you like Green Day, we're going to show you when Green Day is coming and give you like an ad for concert tickets. And I think that's a huge difference between our ad system and everyone else's. It's kind of different from the rest of what we're talking about today, but yeah, there's nothing kind of specific about that. In terms of your other question was competition with Google. I don't know, I mean, I think Gmail's a really good product, right? And it's kind of like what I said at the conclusion of this. You know, one of the things that I think is pretty funny, there's all this coverage that's like, this is a Gmail killer. And some of you guys wrote about this. The code name for this project was Titan, right? The code name for our last messages product was Gigabox. So, and there was this article this morning, I think TechCrunch might have written about it, where there was this new company that just launched called Gigabox. And we're like, we had no idea that there was another company that was called Gigabox. So we were all joking this morning, like, Facebook, this isn't a Gmail killer, this is a Gigabox killer. Because we're retiring the Gigabox system inside Facebook in exchange for the new Titan infrastructure that we've built. So in reality, I think that they have a great product. Email is still really important to a lot of people. And you know, we just think that this simpler kind of messaging is going to be how a lot more people shift a lot of their communication. And we'll see how that happens over time. But if we build a good product that people want to use, then people will use it.
They're almost banking on the shorter attention span of Facebook users.
If you want to send messages via Gmail, cool. Like,
versus
we want
the
to
old
enable
school
people to connect
Gmail.
however they want to connect. It doesn't matter what service they use.
Right. Yeah, they're trying to spin it that they're just adding email
Gmail has a nice
to Facebook,
off the record,
but not launching an email product.
Chat function.
Right.
You have, what are the controls for, you don't want to save all this stuff.
Users have the ability to, of course, yeah. So users have the ability to delete any conversation they don't want to keep in their inbox, and they can either permanently archive it, so it's just removed from view. But if it gets
can you delete it from someone else's
then it'll kind of come back into their primary view, or they can actually delete it from their inbox entirely.
Well, one of the things that's unique about this system is that all of these different channels are unified, right? So in other systems, you have email and IM are two different things, right? So it kind of makes sense to be able to say, all right, well, this IM is more temporal, so make sure that we don't log this anywhere. But in our system, I mean, you could be IMing with someone who on the other side is receiving it as an email or an SMS, and the context doesn't really make sense, right? To be able to say, you can't store this message on the other side. It's like, what do you mean? I'm receiving it as an email, right? So what's really important is that people obviously can say, I don't want this information stored. I can delete any messages that I want, and you can delete these threads. But in terms of separating out email from IM, one of the big things that we're doing is kind of converging these systems and making seamless integration. So we thought that off-the-record metaphor, we actually spent a while talking about it internally, but we just concluded that it didn't make sense given the structure of what we're doing.
You're listening to breaking news coverage of Facebook's announcement of a new messaging system.
In terms of the technical challenge, was this the biggest technical challenge for Facebook to date, given how long you worked on it and the number of people you had on it? And secondly, how do you see this new messaging service changing the way that people will interact with one another socially? Is Facebook going to be the be-all and end-all for them when it comes to communication?
I don't want to start a nerd fight in which we fight about whether this is the biggest technical challenge of all times. It was definitely a big technical challenge, and we put a very serious investment of engineering resources into it, as well as, of course, hardware and other things. I mean, I think, so, yes, it's a big challenge. We have a lot of big challenges, and I'm not about to get into the fight of trying to compare one to the other. I do think, from the perspective of how we think this will affect things, if we're doing our job well, to users, you saw the UI, it's very much what they're used to. It should work along things they're comfortable with. If they're already used to using IM, it'll work the same way. If they're used to using Facebook messages, it looks very similar. Chat will work the same way. Jabber on their the other clients will work the same way. So all of those things will work the same way, and hopefully we'll provide them a place to have a conversation that feels much more ongoing. So if I had a hope of how this would change the way people communicate, It was that we would feel a lot more like we're in continuous conversation with those that we care about, instead of this fragmented kind of set of messages that don't live in the same place and don't relate to one another. Where's the next? Who's got the microphone? Over here.
I was curious how this system would allow you to refine the social graph for users, especially their interactions with people who aren't on Facebook. I mean, it seems like you're capturing lots of channels. Many of those people may not be communicating through Facebook. How does that expand?
Sure. Yeah, no, I think for us, you know, the way people communicate and who they communicate with is really important. I mean, we're really focused with the social design aspect that we've brought here on people who you've said are your friends on Facebook and people that you've chosen to have meaningful interactions with friends. But of course, users have all the control to move those around and kind of pay attention where they want it to be paid. But that's all private. That's all just for you. I mean, that's who you communicate with is definitely something that, you know, is between you and the person you're communicating with. Sorry. We have a history for your, yeah, but you can delete, I mean, if you want to. Yeah, no, so like, I think, again, like, I'm not sure I'm understanding the nuance of the question here, but like, yes, we want to make sure people can communicate with whoever they want to, and that includes the full context and social history. Just because somebody else isn't using a service that I like shouldn't preclude me from using the service that I like. Nor should me using Facebook preclude them from using whatever they like, right? And so if on Facebook our users have this expectation that they're going to have conversations with people they care about, it doesn't matter that the user's not a Facebook user. That person can be an email user. That's fine. That's great. We could both be email users and communicating via Facebook. It's all good. So I think the real question for me is then, okay, what do we do with that? Well, we just like make sure that you have access to all that history.
Although your history is existing in someone else's
I guess my
account
point is,
as
right
well,
now I have conversations
as far as privacy goes.
are with people who aren't on Facebook, aren't involved with Facebook. You're not capturing that, so you really don't understand my social graph as well as you'd like. Does this expand your ability to do that?
I mean, so the default is that, you're right. I mean, like you've put in your friend list into Facebook and your friends have put their friend list in. So Boz talked about these 3 different folders, right? The main inbox, the other folder, and then junk, which no one will ever see. And in terms of putting stuff into the main inbox, if you're not a part of the Facebook system, then we don't start off knowing how to put your stuff into the main folder. So if you send an email, it's going to go into the other folder to start off with, right? But I mean, we expect that problem can very quickly get solved, right? Through people saying, oh, actually, this is an important person to me. This is a real person. Put them in my main folder. And then, you know, quickly through that, if Boz says that, and Boz is my friend, then now that person sends me an email. That person can go to my main folder, right? And this is the social design part that Boz was talking about. Using your network around you to make your world better.
But what are you doing with that data when it comes from the outside?
My question is about the content filtering. I was wondering, say my mom, I want to hear from her, of course, but she likes to send a lot of forwards of funny cat emails or something, and I don't want to get those. Is there further filtering you can do on the content side, or is it just based on your social graph?
No, but there's only going to be one thread with her.
Right here. Yeah, I'm not quite sure I heard the answer to this gentleman's question. Obviously, when you're communicating with your email friends as opposed to your Facebook friends, people who might not be on Facebook, the question is, are you capturing those email addresses and adding them to the information that you already know about me as a Facebook user? Do those email addresses and those interactions become a part of my social graph? If so, how are you using that?
Yeah, I mean, in some way we do that because let's say you get an email address from your grandmother who's not yet on, you get an email from your grandmother who's not yet on Facebook. That message goes into the other folder to begin with, right? Because we don't have enough context to say that that should go into the main folder. And the modality that we have seen people use the product in and that we expect is that you're kind of constantly checking your main folder. The other folder, that stuff isn't quite as prominent, right? So you get an email from the other folder, it doesn't pop up as an IM or anything like that. And you'll go to your other folder maybe once a day. And when you check that, if you say, okay, well, this is from my grandmother, I want to respond. Or you say, okay, I want to get messages from her in my main box. Then yeah, I mean, we store that email address now as part of the list of contacts that you want to get content in your main inbox from. So, I mean, we have to do that. right, in order for the product to work? I think that's what you're asking. I'm not sure, but I'm trying to answer.
You're going to have to ask it directly. They're refusing to answer the data mining
question. Is that
question.
the question or no? Okay.
Maybe they just didn't think about it. No.
Related question to all this is, so what happens to the corporate email addresses? What am I going to email you and the press team at now?
So
that's kind of
after a long discussion,
question.
The Farm Bureau has agreed to give us FB.com.
So that's why they got FB.
Yeah.
What's up? In exchange for that, we've agreed not to sell farm subsidies. That's limiting our options. This is a big conversation internally because a lot of people who work at Facebook are really tied to their Facebook.com email addresses. But our philosophy is just that brand is so important to the people who use the product, and if we wanted to give the best that we had to users, we really should give them Facebook.com and come up with something else for ourselves.
A good choice, a very user-centric choice.
In that world, what do we want to be? And FB.com seemed pretty reasonable, so that's what we are.
Yahoo did the same thing.
So after today,
a long time ago.
FB.com.
Over here.
Hey.
Well, that solves that mystery of why they got FB.com from the Farm Bureau.
So I have a question about Laura Seidel from NPR. If I have people on my Facebook account, which I'm sorry to anyone who happens to be a Facebook friend, but many of the friends there are more casual. They're actually not my closest friends. And so is this automatically going to mean they can start sending me emails? And, I use a separate email account, Yahoo, and that's where what I give to people that I'm really personally close with. Whereas Facebook for me is more different levels of friendship. Some people close, some people more distant. And is there some way this is going to discern between them?
Well, one thing that's really important is, first of all, with social design, we're always counting on a meaningful friend relationship. And that's worth noting in general. It's we think friends is a meaningful distinction. But in your case, to answer your question, no, if the email address portion of this is totally optional. And the system works just as well if you choose not to get an email address as if you do choose to get an email address. So that's for people who want to use that, who want to connect with people who aren't on Facebook or who just prefer to use email. We make that an option for them. At the same time, anyone who's already your Facebook friend, they can probably already send you Facebook messages. So as far as their ability to send you messages, that'll be the same today as it was yesterday.
But they can't send you Facebook messages from their Gmail account, which they could if you enable a Facebook email account.
So it seems to me that one of the early objectives of Facebook was to allow people to expand their social network, but this system very much has you grouping people into close friend, not close friend. Doesn't that sort of erode the objective of networking and expanding through the internet in ways that you couldn't do before?
I'll let Mark answer. I don't think the goal of Facebook was ever to expand the social graph so much as to map it out. I have real life friends. I have friends in my life, and I had friends before Facebook, I really did, and I continue to have friends after Facebook.
We're sure you did.
And one of the goals of Facebook is to make it easier for me to communicate with those people. These are people that I care about. Many of them are, at college in Boston, and they've gone to different places. People in Seattle when I worked there for a little while, and they still live up there. I don't see them that often. And the chances that I would be able, in a different world that didn't have something like Facebook, to be connected to them and feel as comfortable with them and what they're doing as I can today, there is no technology. There is nothing else. That's what Facebook does.
You're listening to live coverage of Facebook announcing their new messaging product. Brought to you by Slingbox. Whenever there's breaking news, go to live.twit.tv. We'll be covering it. Anything in the technology world, Slingbox helps us to bring that to you. Find them at a Best Buy near you or at slingbox.com/twit. Facebook has announced a messaging service. It's going to be in private invite for a while, rolling out over the next few months, giving you a Facebook.com email address if you want, and allowing you to accept emails into your Facebook account.
Messaging SMS feature, that functionality that we enable in messages, is already live on the site today, and it has been for I think 3.5 or 4 years. So the good news, so it's totally, again, just like the email part, if people want to choose to communicate that way, they're welcome to, and we have the system and infrastructure built to support that. But if you don't want to do that, then you won't get text messages, but that's probably fine because you've chosen not to.
And is there any way that one thing I think is interesting here is are you as a Facebook user going to be filling in any holes, associating your email contacts with Facebook profiles? So basically, are you going to be associating anything with profiles that those people have not associated, if that makes any sense?
So right now we don't support that. It's conceivable that we would allow people to say, hey, this email address is actually my friend Ben, by the way, just so that they can have their own context in their inbox. But for example, around SMS, if I want to send you an SMS, and you'll notice in the UI, and Mark referred to it earlier, there's a little button that says send this as a text message if I want to send a message with a certain degree of urgency and deliverability. If the person that I'm trying to send that message to doesn't have their SMS set up, we'll give you the option. And it'll say right there, you'll have the option of inviting them and saying, hey, your friend wants to send you an SMS but couldn't because you weren't configured. But it's not the case that you can configure it for them. This is something that they have to choose to do.
We have a question that's come in online, and then we'll do one more question.
This is from Facebook Live. Shreyas from Atlanta says, how much storage space will each user be getting, and will it be possible to forward messages?
Great, 2 questions. Message forwarding the answer is yes. We're adding a number of features to this product that are actually among our most requested features for messaging at Facebook. One is the ability to forward messages, and it's very selective. By default, we forward nothing, and you kind of select which messages in the conversation to forward. We don't forward the whole thing. And then we also added the ability, for example, in a group conversation, to add people to the thread and also to leave the thread. So our users have asked for those things, and we're excited to be able to deliver those. And the second question was, the storage thing. Yeah, this is something that we're not going to give a specific number. The idea here is and this is actually kind of, I think, the way modern messaging systems are going. Even Hotmail with SkyDrive does this kind of thing, where it's if you're a good user and you're using this thing without abusing it, you should have no cause for concern. For people who try to find the limits,
it's the Comcast bandwidth cap
and they will find the limits, and those limits. So I think there's no reason to give a specific number. If you're using the system as is appropriate, then you're fine.
If you're not the kind of person to push limits, you'll be fine. If you have nothing to hide,
if you're not doing anything wrong, then you have nothing to worry about.
The primary communication layer for each of these users, and if so, is there a way to redirect an email address to your Facebook one?
I mean, the goal for us is really to make it easier for our users to connect with people they care about. And if that means that they find it easier to do that on Facebook, cool. If they find that now easier to do off of Facebook, that's fine too. So we don't have any plans to kind of reroute the internet and how it works. We're just taking advantage of how it already works and trying to make sure that our protocols work with those. If people want to do it that way, we've certainly optimized. We've certainly optimized for this to be focusing on friends and not for kind of other things, but we're not handicapping it. Those things will find their way to the other folder, and if you're diligent about checking that, we're not going to try to make it harder for you.
Thanks, everyone. I know we got to wrap up, so if you have any other questions, please email them at press@facebook.com.
All right. Thanks, guys.
So there you have it. Facebook launches a new messaging system. You can't get it yet, most likely, unless you were in that room. Apparently, they're
or you know somebody in that room.
They're inviting the press and a few other selected people first. They'll roll it out slowly over 6 months, and right now they're going to all go and have lunch. But to sort of recap. The idea is that now, once this finally rolls out to everyone, you'll be able to get a Facebook.com email address. It will accept messages from the outside and have them pop up in your chat. They will be associated, emails will be associated with different profiles. One thing I didn't hear them talk about is whether if somebody that is a Facebook Facebook contact emails you from one of their email addresses,
would that sync up?
Would they know that? How do they know that?
That's interesting. They could know that. I know with my Facebook, account, I've got pretty much most of the email addresses that I ever use plugged in there and associated with. So I would imagine if people do that, then it would be pretty easy.
Right. But that's one glitch that could pop up.
Yeah, for sure.
There's also some integration with text messaging if you do the same thing as with email, as if adding an email address to your account. If you add your phone number to your account, it'll be able to accept text messages, forward to text messages. They emphasized the Facebook app, and there's a new Facebook iPhone app out today that includes this capability. They'll send you push notifications. So if somebody on their Gmail sends an email to your Facebook.com email and you have your Facebook app launched, it will push that message to you, kind of like a text message.
This is functionality that'll be built into the existing Facebook app. It's not an entirely new Facebook messaging app.
And the entire thing is meant to exist as one seamless inbox.
Right.
So you'll be able to go and look at the history, no matter whether someone entered their message in chat or sent it by email or sent it by text message. That's sort of the three main ways they see this happening. It will go into your history. And then the final thing was a priority inbox sort of situation for these messages. So you'll be able to prioritize things based on your friend list, which none of this stuff is new. There's plenty of clients that can do this, but what Facebook adds to the process is the fact that you've already done a lot of the work to set this up.
Yeah, it adds a lot of context in how you use Facebook regularly. If you use it a lot, that's more context added to it. They've got 3 different categories that you can filter: messages, which are conversations with actual people, they say; other, which are email lists and the like, the type of stuff that you want to get, but it's not quite as important as like your close friends; and then junk, if you absolutely don't want to see it.
And to begin with, it'll say, well, if this comes from one of your Facebook contacts, we're going to put it in that top level. It says this must be important. So you've got a whitelist built in. You can then manage it. You can say, well, that is my Facebook contact, but it's not a really good friend of mine, so I'm going to put that in the second level or maybe even in the third level. You can move those things back and forth. Or if there's a Facebook fan group, which would normally go into the second level, that you really think is important, you want to see everything Justin Bieber posts to you on his group, you can move that up into the first level. So it takes a bit of management. At first we were saying, this sounds a little bit like Google Wave. It's not real time.
Right.
That history thing is a little bit Wave-ish, but I think it's better than Wave because it's multi-platform. Emails can come in from the outside. They don't have to be from a Facebook.com address. They can be from any email address. And then it can be chat. It can be instant message, whereas Wave required everyone to be using Wave.
Yeah, and Wave kind of always felt like it could do a lot of things, but what was it really focused at? What was the focus and the purpose of using this? This for sure feels like it has more of a purpose, very specific purpose than Wave ever did. So I could see this being a lot more successful. One thing that I thought was interesting that they pointed out was the whole fact that, kids these days and the future of communication on the web is not email. It's more on these instant messages and, and texts and IMs and all that kind of stuff. And I actually totally agree with him in the sense that I've talked to a lot of younger, relatives of mine and stuff like that, and they see email as like this archaic messaging, format. They really are all about the text and the IM, and sure, we use that, but it's hard for me to disassociate myself with email entirely, and I think moving forward,
that's because you're old.
Yeah, exactly. I'm an old fuddy-duddy, don't I look it? So I don't know. I do think that they were going somewhere that where they're headed in that direction. I think there's merit to that.
The question is, are you going to use this?
Yeah,
it's an interesting system that they've created that can be great for prioritizing messages. It can be great for conversation history in a way that is not as easily done. It's not that you can't do this. You can do this with Gmail. You can do this with Outlook. You can tie these things together. But Facebook's making it very easy because you've already done a lot of the work to set it up already, and they're making it turnkey. Do you want to use Facebook as your primary area where you handle your messages?
Yeah.
And I think that is where they may be overestimating it. The folks who use email, and this is where his point and your point that you just made about email being seen as old-fashioned, the folks that use email use it for productivity. They use it for business because it's the old-fashioned way.
Sure.
And I don't see someone saying, I would like my work emails to go through Facebook. That's just not going to happen.
No.
So the idea of Facebook becoming your primary way goes away. This is not, and they mentioned that this is not going to replace Gmail.
Yeah,
this is not going to replace your email address. This is an extra way for someone to get a hold of you through Facebook. And in that respect, it's just a tweak to Facebook messaging.
Yeah, right. And in fact, like leading up to this, people were asking themselves, am I willing to ditch whatever email client or email service that I use currently for a new one? Like it would have to be miles above, what I use now and have to innovate in different ways that I don't even understand right now for me to even think about it. And for me personally, I only switched to Gmail maybe, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe, from Yahoo. So, like, I really want to do that again. But I mean, Zuckerberg, you know, he said specifically, he said, we don't expect anyone to wake up tomorrow and say, I'm going to shut down my Yahoo account or my Gmail account and switch to Facebook. This is a messaging system that includes email as part of it.
They're basically trying to spin it, and I think they're actually right, that this is their new messaging system where they've added email functionality in a way they think adds value without causing problems. Now, they addressed the issue of spam with this inbox system, with this prioritization system, but you're still going to have your Facebook account now with a bunch of spam down there in that third level. It's going to happen. I mean, the bots will pick up the address. The bots don't care whether it's Facebook or not. They're going to see an @facebook.com, and they're going to start putting every letter under the sun as a prefix to that and start sending out messages. So even if you prioritize things, that third level is just going to become useless.
Yeah, potentially so. What else here? Facebook messages won't have subject lines. They're just going to be single message history with each person. They're really going after these little nuggets, you know, the short, like I said earlier, the short attention span approach to communication as opposed to the long form archaic email system.
A minor but rather amusing side note is that Facebook did acquire FB.com from the Farm Bureau. We knew that. We didn't know what they were going to use it for, and apparently that will now be the internal Facebook corporate email extension. This is not new. When we were at Tech TV, we had Tech TV Corp as an email extension, techtvcorp.com, whereas techtv.com was a public email. The opposite was true at CNET. CNET.com was your email address, no matter what. At Yahoo, if you were a corporate user, you had a different Yahoo address than Yahoo.com. Yahoo.com was for the public. So they've given Facebook.com to the public and changed all their internal emails, all their corporate emails, to FB.com. But the Farm Bureau is the big loser here.
Yeah, I wish I had. No, hey, wait a minute. Maybe I do. Do I have a sad trombone? I got to have it here somewhere.
Well, now it's a little late.
Yeah, that's okay. I had to scramble for that one. But that's for you, Farm Bureau.
Now, this is also an opt-in messaging system. You can choose whether to turn it on. You can use your privacy setting, the one privacy setting about messages, to decide whether you're going to accept messages from everyone, from friends of friends, or just friends. So you can decide how open you want to be with this, which actually, that solves your spam question right there. If you say, I'm only going to accept from friends or friends of friends, you're not going to get spam from the outside. It's just going to be bounced. They're going to turn it away, they said. They'll just say, you know what, we're not accepting that.
And it's not even going to hit your junk folder.
You'll never hit,
it's
you'll
not
never
even
hit
going
the
to reach
junk
you
folder
at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing for me here is going into the announcement, like I said, asking myself whether I'd actually switch. And it really does seem like with this solution, it's not about switching necessarily. Like, this still might be somewhat usable to me within the Facebook, you know, the Facebook thing, the Facebook fence, whatever you want to call it, while still allowing me to use Gmail or my other email clients, any other email clients in the way that you're used to. This is just added functionality to how you communicate through Facebook. I guess if you wanted to continue using something like Gmail and forward your emails, no, that wouldn't really work, because then it's coming from you. It's not coming from the person that sent you messages to Gmail.
That's a good question. If you will always be able to send yourself an email.
Yeah.
Conceivably, because you are your own friend.
Right. Yeah, I guess so. But would that interfere with kind of their kind of priority filtering? You know, if you're forwarding a message from mom that hit your Gmail into your Facebook account, so you can still continue to use your Gmail as your email connect, but to use the functionality of Facebook, like, would that interfere?
Well, it's going to appear to come from you.
Yeah,
I don't know that it's smart enough to tell that it was actually a forwarded message from mom or not. You will be able to use forwarding, they said, but the big question is data mining, and there were several clever attempts by reporters in the Q&A section to ask this question of, if you get an email to Facebook.com from someone who's not on Facebook, what happens to that person's data? And Mark Zuckerberg and Boz, the developer who was up there talking about it, really refused to acknowledge the subtle underlying question of data mining there, and said, well, then that person, if you decide to say, like, okay, this is an important person, we'll go to your important person and those messages will be saved. but those messages are saved on Facebook. And this is the difference. You can delete messages from your account, but you can't delete messages from someone else's account. That's the way email works.
Yeah, sure.
Right? That's no different.
Absolutely.
The difference with email is generally it's only stored in your box or someone else's box who's received your email. It's not stored at Facebook.com. It's the fact of Facebook. Sure, Google has all of your Gmails. Yahoo has all of your Yahoo mails. And there's certain levels of trust or distrust. The level of distrust is high at Facebook right now for most users, I think. And so they're saying, look, if I send and receive emails at Facebook.com, what are you going to do with that on the back end? How are you going to aggregate that? How are you going to sell that? And their only answer to that was, well, you have the same control over these messages that you have over any other message in Facebook, which is true. And you will, we will sell advertising against any page on Facebook, the same as we sell advertising against any page on Facebook right now. We're not changing anything. But that means they are reading that data. They're not reading it like someone sitting down personally and reading. They're reading it algorithmically and aggregated. I'm not actually that worried about that kind of thing.
Yeah, that doesn't really worry me a whole lot. I mean, ultimately, I guess the question is, if you delete a message and the recipient deletes a message, does it still exist on the Facebook servers? And if it's anything like other email clients, you have to imagine that no, it doesn't. But like you said, there's still a little bit of that kind of concern with Facebook when it comes to privacy issues. And, you know, I guess we don't know until we know.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing is they're making a very smart choice in trying to roll this out slowly.
Yeah,
and not force it on everyone at once, which has been Facebook's mode of operations in the past. We've got a new feature, we launched it, we didn't even tell you about it. Lately, they've had, you know what? Let's bring out the star of the social network, Mark Zuckerberg, show you that he's not like that guy in the movie, and then let's roll this out slowly. Let's not foist it upon everyone at once and see how it goes. So I think it's actually in some ways a minor tweak that will just allow another option for receiving and sending messages, which will make it easier to communicate with your Facebook friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that in itself could have some major implications. It all depends on how people end up using it.
Yeah. Am I going to opt to email a friend of mine at facebook.com versus the email address I've already been using and I have stored in my address book for that to even enter into the system to begin with? That's where it gets a little kind of cloudy for me. Like, you know, I just don't see a huge amount of people seeing what we saw today and saying, all right, facebook.com or at facebook.com is my new email address for, you know, email me there. You can contact me at that point. I just don't see that happening. So then how does that get integrated and used by a wide variety of people?
I think it ends up getting you. I think here's my guess. Ends up getting used when you're on Facebook and you see that, you know, you want to send a message to me, but I'm not on Facebook right then. So you can't chat. And you could send a message that would show up at my email address. But let's say you know that I've turned that off. That I've told you, like, you know, my messages on Facebook, I turn that off. I don't get them emailed to me. So you want to force this upon me, right?
Right.
You send it from your Facebook.com account
SMS.
to my email address.
Or
SMS, either one. And it shows up there, and then now I am forced to interact with you, which isn't, you know, it may sound like a bad thing the way you put that, but if you're my friend and it's a message that I allegedly would want to get, then, you know, and I've whitelisted you properly, put you up in the first group, then you can actually use Facebook to reach out and communicate with me instead of switching to Gmail.
Yeah.
Now, or Yahoo Mail or whatever your mail account is. That may sound silly. It's like, well, why don't I just open up my mail app and send that email to me? But maybe it's a part of that you want it to be part of this threaded conversation. Maybe it is that, like, setting up a restaurant sort of deal.
Yeah, Deep Pan actually in the chat room brought up a good point that I hadn't thought about. He said, don't you already need an email address to register a Facebook account? If Facebook is looking for people maybe that aren't signed up with Facebook, to now look at this announcement and be like, oh, well, I could just get my email through Facebook. Great, I'll sign up for it. Is there a way to sign up for Facebook by using a Facebook email address? You know what I mean?
I think
if you don't have another email address to use,
which came
in
first,
some weird world, somebody didn't already have email and they decided to make Facebook their first email. Is there any way to sign up for it without another email address?
That's
I guess we don't know the
philosophical
answer
question
to that question, but
if a Facebook email falls in the forest, does anybody get it? No, I mean if you can't sign up
with anybody,
if you can't, I don't know of a way to sign up for Facebook without an email address.
Yeah, right.
So if you can't sign up for Facebook without an email address, then no. The answer is you can't sign up for Facebook without an email address. However, if you have a Facebook.com account already, you could create a second Facebook.com account and use your Facebook.com email as an email.
Whoa.
Yeah. Double Facebook.
You just blew my mind right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all kidding aside, I start to wonder whether Facebook needs to do these big announcements. I was happy that they got right to it. They started on time. They went right into the demonstration. They didn't spend a ton of time on that on these opening machinations.
Sure.
And they finished rather quickly.
They did. It was pretty brief.
It was about half presentation and half Q&A.
Yep.
So I think it ended up doing its job, but it didn't. It didn't actually. That's my dog barking in the background. If you can hear that, I don't know. It didn't actually overstate the case, but the fact of having an event somewhat sets the expectations that this is going to be revolutionary. I'm not sure if this meets that or not.
It kind of seems more and more these days there's an event for every little release.
For instance, tomorrow, Apple is going to add something from iTunes at 7 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Eastern. They say check back to apple.com for a new announcement from iTunes, something like that.
Yeah, they said it's a big deal.
So
a little bit ago.
This is the opposite of what Facebook just did.
Absolutely.
And this is very not like Apple. Usually, they either roll something out without saying anything about it, or they call a press conference. Now they say tomorrow is just another day that you'll never forget. Check back here for an exciting announcement from iTunes.
Check back here being iTunes.
Yeah, here being apple.com.
Or apple.com. Sorry.
Right. So they're going the opposite direction than Facebook did today, saying, you know what, we got a big announcement and we're just going to put it on the website. Yeah. I don't know if we'll end up covering that or not, because there's nothing to cover other than what happened.
Right. Oh, it's live now, and it's on the site, and here it is. Yeah.
And maybe that's worth covering. I don't know. But, there's lots of speculation what that could or could not be, same as there was for this announcement. My point in bringing it up is that that's a different way of doing things that doesn't overstate the expectation to me. Anything Apple does actually overstates the expectation just because of the nature of Apple. But I believe that this announcement could have been done that way. Facebook,
I agree too.
Check back on
put out
Facebook.
a blog, which they've done in the past.
And maybe
a blog for an announcement.
But I think they've got a vested interest in putting Mark Zuckerberg up on stage live in front of people right now.
Yeah, it really seems that way.
They want to do that. Maybe he wants to do that.
Well, there've been a lot of there've been speculation in the media about this, revolutionary quote unquote email service, that's kind of forming right now around Facebook. So maybe the perception was that if there's that much anticipation for a feature like this, then it warranted some sort of a discussion like this.
Yeah, it's it's an interesting thing. I think we've about analyzed it to death. I think we've done all we can.
It's been beaten into the ground.
We were trying to see if we could get some folks online that were at the event to share their comments on them, but we haven't been able. They're all too busy eating lunch. They've got free sandwiches stuck in their face.
Understood.
Yeah. So we want to thank Slingbox for helping bring this to you. Slingbox, of course, brings our breaking news coverage to us. They are at slingbox.com/twit. We bring you live coverage of the world's most important tech news as it happens with breaking news coverage. Anytime you come across breaking news item in tech, turn on live.twit.tv. Chances are we'll be there, like we were today, following the story, giving you the commentary. With things like this, where there's a live stream, we're going to comment on it as it goes. Some people don't like that, and I understand that. That's fine. If that's the case, you can go to the primary source if there is one. and then check back with us afterwards for the analysis, or get the analysis as we go along. I know a lot of you like that. That's what we're here for. TWiT Live Breaking News is brought to you by Slingbox. Use Slingbox to watch your favorite TV shows when you're away from home. To learn more about Slingbox at a Best Buy near you, stop by or visit slingbox.com/twit. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.